I just discovered, through videos, that my fiancée cheated on me during her bachelorette party. I am stunned and unsure of how to act. I am 33 years old and never imagined finding myself in this situation. I haven't shared this with anyone yet, despite attempts to contact me. I need to vent before making any decisions. My partner and I have shared 4 years of life together, and we're about to get married. She celebrated her bachelorette party, and I was comfortable with her plans and her friends' plans to rent an Airbnb for a party. On the day, she was at my apartment, where I have an office for my work as an independent investor. We exchanged some messages, but as the party progressed, we stopped talking. At midnight, as I was preparing to sleep, I noticed that the office computer was on. To my surprise, my fiancé's messenger was open, revealing a chat group with several messages and videos. Driven by curiosity, I watched some of them. At first, they seemed harmless. 15 girls drinking and dancing. But then, I saw something that shocked me. My fiancé kissing a man on the couch and, soon after, entering a room with him and another. The videos were quickly deleted, but I saved them. Recording a response video, I declared the end of our engagement and the cancellation of the wedding. Ignoring her calls and messages and those of friends, I chose to distance myself from this painful situation. Suddenly, I was surprised by an invitation to a video call. Driven by curiosity, I accepted the call without making a sound. In front of the camera was my fiancée, with tears in her eyes, surrounded by some friends. I only know 4 of them well, but the faces of the others are not unfamiliar to me. She began by apologizing, trying to explain that things were not as they seemed. It was just a party, and the arrival of those guys had not been planned. She insisted that, despite appearances, nothing had happened. In the face of my silence, she continued to justify herself, while her friends supported her. The more I remained silent, the more desperate she became. Finally, she confessed to kissing 2 men but blamed her friends, who took responsibility for what happened. This shocked me a bit. She claimed the kisses meant nothing and that nothing more had happened. Remembering the video where she entered a room, she started screaming that it was all a joke, that nothing else had occurred. The other women confirmed her version. Then, my fiancé appeared, turned around, and left. The conversation dragged on, with repetitions and more excuses, until everyone fell silent. I asked if there was anything more to say. Faced with a negative, I ended the call. I went to social media, updated my status to single, and announced the cancellation of the wedding, suggesting that the gifts be returned. She saw the post and became even more agitated, insisting that she had only kissed and nothing more. I sent a message warning that if I suspected lies or attempts to defame me, I would release the videos. No one else knew what was happening. The wedding was canceled, and my fiancé kept looking for me. Does anyone have any advice on what to do next? Fast forward in time, the update is simple. Everything was undone, the wedding canceled. I recovered the ring, and her things were removed. She is with her parents now. We talked, and she begged, apologized, and cried, insisting that she only kissed the men and that she had never done anything like this before, promising it would not happen again. Part of me wanted to believe her, but this incident cast doubts on our entire relationship. Maybe she was telling the truth, but how can I be sure? Did her friends pressure her? How can I trust that this never happened before? We continue in a vicious cycle, as there is no way to be sure. She said she would do anything, even distance herself from friends, and only drink in my presence. She publicly criticized them, saying that if the party had gone as planned, we would still be getting married. Maybe she has already cut them off. At the moment, I am single and moving on with my life. After the end of a 4-year relationship, it's likely that I'll take some time just for myself. What's most surprising is that her friends have been sending me messages, but I haven't responded yet. After all, it's complicated to trust them too. I appreciate everyone's compassion and hope you never have to face a similar situation. I was imprudent in dealing with the situation where the original post's author argues with her fiancé. She downplays what happened, saying she only kissed 2 guys. She doesn't realize that, even if they weren't engaged, this is serious. If it were the other way around, and he had kissed 2 girls, I doubt she would consider it such a trivial act. The way she describes it, it seems like there were no consequences. But this is unacceptable. If it were true, and something more had happened, it would fully justify the author's decision to step away before committing to a marriage. As for the pressure from friends to do this or that, it's irrelevant. She should be able to make her own decisions. When people use this excuse, it seems like they don't have their own personality, just reflecting the collective. In such a situation, external pressure shouldn't matter. But if she has that kind of personality, maybe in her mind, this is a valid justification. I feel sorry for the guy and hope he's okay. As for advice, I'd like to hear your opinion in the comments. And as for my boyfriend, who has been hiding things and acting strangely for 3 years, this causes me stress. I'm 23 years old, and my boyfriend is 27. We've been together for 3 years, and until now, everything was great. We've lived together for almost the entire relationship. Lately, his work has been chaotic, which stresses him out. People at his job are late, and he ends up having to rush with tasks. This may be contributing to the fights that have become more frequent. Usually, we're good at apologizing and talking about our problems, so I don't understand why this has been happening more. One thing I've noticed is that he's very defensive with his phone. I understand that we all have our defenses, but this worries me. Normally, while I draw, my sketches don't face directly towards me, and I avoid looking at them without permission because it disturbs me. Sometimes, I wish for a bit of privacy, which is perfectly acceptable. However, becoming overly defensive about it, as if trying to reclaim a precious ring golem style, seems exaggerated. Occasionally, he even argues with me about it, especially when I pick up the phone just to do a quick Google search. He seems to need to close several tabs or check something first. My phone is always available to him. I have nothing to hide and am not ashamed of anything on it. Secondly, he changed the computer password, something he does occasionally for work security reasons, but he has always shared the new password with me. I have my own computer and rarely use his, which is also used for work. However, over the years, we've had the custom of logging into each other's Minecraft and leaving loving messages hidden throughout the virtual world. This time, he didn't give me the password but offered to help me access it, which doesn't make sense since the point is to enter alone. Thirdly, he has been leaving the house abruptly. Sometimes, I just hear the door closing and he disappears, usually for no more than 30 minutes, without saying goodbye. When he returns, he acts as if nothing happened. I've noticed he does this to use the phone, although he has perfect signal at home and talks to his father and does video conferences without any problems. I can't understand why he would need to leave the house so suddenly for this. As for the mail, he has peculiar behavior. He checks our mailbox constantly, before we leave, when we return, and even when we know there's no mail, like at midnight on Sundays. Recently, he instructed me not to check the mail or open any correspondence for the next few weeks. When I asked why, he said it was something personal and that he couldn't discuss it. We've been together for 3 years and have always been transparent with each other. There have never been secrets between us. There are other issues that could be related to work, but I'm confused and don't know what to think. His family is in town and will stay for about a week. Tomorrow, we're going to a theme park, followed by a week of dinners, breakfasts, beach outings, and other activities. Today, he received a package and took it upstairs without showing me the contents. I only saw when he discarded the box. From the size and the fragments I read, I suspect it might be some computer component or electronic device. For those who suggest he might be cheating on me, I understand how that conclusion can be drawn, but there are many details I haven't shared due to stress. Here are some facts. He works from home and is always there. We rarely go out separately. He doesn't know any women here besides my friends, and as far as I know, he doesn't talk to any of them. My guess is that he's planning something for his father, since he couldn't be present for his birthday last month, and perhaps wants to keep it as a complete surprise. Even though he is financially successful, there are no debts that concern us, as we have just acquired our residence, and he has an exemplary credit history. I decided to take a break and see if everything remains stable while his family is with us. I appreciate everyone for the perspective offered. 2 weeks later, there was a twist. Yesterday, I had a meeting at the design center for our new home, which we recently purchased. His family was visiting, so we spent most of the time together. He showed no unusual behavior, and the consultation was a success. When we returned home, he suggested we have that talk. My heart sank. We walked to a nearby park in silence, uncertain whether I should question him. On the pier, as I watched dolphins swimming in the distance, he handed me an envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter with my name drawn on it. Trembling with nervousness and anticipation, I read to the end, crying. When I looked up, he was kneeling, making the marriage proposal. I was speechless, covering my face with the letter as tears streamed down. What you need to understand is the effort he made. He knows I love old and peculiar items, so he created a letter with an aged appearance, remembering my favorite pattern to decorate it. He also gifted me with a tiny bat skull, found online, inside a wooden coffin box along with the ring. It may not be fascinating to everyone, but to me, it was touching. The ring is wonderful. He remembered an old conversation where I mentioned my preference for smaller rings and my dislike for large diamonds. He chose a white gold ring with a black onyx stone and 2 small side diamonds. I was delighted. He apologized for the recent oddness, explaining the stress caused by the proposal, his family, and the new house. I felt foolish for having suspected infidelity, knowing that he does not use illicit substances. Some even suggested that he might be proposing, and I dismissed the idea. Still in shock, I blamed myself for considering the possibility of something negative. Many thought he was cheating on me, although I did not believe it. The situation with the nighttime correspondence was peculiar, leading me to think that someone, not the postman, was delivering something. The stories shared by others about similar situations were comforting, especially a hilarious anecdote about a husband who showed my mother what the cat had done in the litter box. At that moment, I decided to let things take their course. Evidently, he intended to show the ring to my mother, but he concocted such an unusual story that it made me think, better not to question it. The person in question, if their grand plan involving cat feces succeeded, would certainly have stories to tell. Remember, you can share your own experiences through the link in the description so they can be highlighted here on the channel. Tell me, what do you think of this narrative? Was I foolish or not? Why would I be the fool for hiding the neighbor's garden gnome that terrorized my son? My neighbor Cindy, at 34, has a beautiful garden where she grows flowers and vegetables, and sometimes she gifts us with surplus, which is very kind. She also has a collection of garden gnomes, those kitschy ones found in specialty stores, ready to be painted. Recently, Cindy acquired a new gnome that, for some reason, terrified my 5-year-old son. I don't understand why, and yes, I've asked him. I suspect he saw something disturbing on YouTube. The gnome, with its hoe and basket of flowers, seems harmless. I decided to talk to Cindy about the problem and suggest that she move the gnome to a less visible location. She refused. It wasn't an unreasonable request. A few days ago, while my son was playing outside, his ball ended up in Cindy's garden. He was so frightened that he refused to retrieve it, crying and begging me to do it. I got the ball back and hid the gnome behind some bushes, planning to return it as soon as playtime was over. Cindy, noticing the gnome's disappearance, became furious and threatened to call the police. After returning the gnome, she banned me from entering her property again. I told my wife what happened and, although she agrees that Cindy overreacted, she also believes I shouldn't have touched the gnome. She says our son will overcome his fear, or will simply have to play in the backyard. I think he has the right to play in the front yard without fear. Am I wrong? Some suggested moving the gnome closer to the boy's window, day by day. I believe the real solution is to help my son face his fears without altering the environment around him. After all, there will come a time when we can't change the world to accommodate him. If something similar happens at school and I'm not around, how will he deal with it? I don't think messing with the gnome on Cindy's property is the right action. There are similar examples involving dogs. If your child is afraid of dogs, you don't hide or get rid of the neighbor's animal. The best thing for the child is to help them overcome their fears. And there's reason to suspect that something on YouTube is behind this fear. It's possible that a boy is spending too much time on YouTube without supervision, watching videos that may be disturbing for his age. This could be exacerbating the situation. It would be prudent for guardians to monitor the content accessed by the child on the platform. The YouTube Kids app, for example, filters and provides only content appropriate for children, excluding the rest. Regarding the situation with the garden gnome, it is important to handle it sensibly, assessing whether the behavior is reasonable or not. When subscribing to a channel, it is essential to activate notifications by clicking on the bell, so as not to miss any episodes of the series. To continue following, use the playlist available in the description. And in the next live broadcast, consider using songs from the selection. Thank you very much for your attention and see you next time.